My rich classmate harassed me for being an immigrant, then publicly accused me of being fraud, so I exposed his family's dark secret to everybody. Months later, he was back begging me for help. I don't if I should shut the door or help. I was 7 when my immigrant parents broke their backs to get me into a private school. My mom scrubbed homes for years, and my dad delivered food around the clock, sleeping 4 hours a day, all because they believed in me and wanted me to have the opportunities they never did. I loved them more than life, but there was always one thing preventing me from feeling like I belonged, and it was where I was from. We had just moved from Pakistan, and my accent stuck to me like a shadow. At school, kids would ask me to say words, not because they were curious, but because they wanted to laugh. Say refrigerator again, they'd snicker. Say library. I told my parents it was fine, that I was adjusting. I could see their hearts breaking. My dad would kiss the top of my head and say, "Your voice will go further than their laughter ever could." And he was right, because by 8th grade, I had studied so hard I was tutoring half my class. By 10th grade, I was designing lesson plans for my school's ESL program. I built a name for myself. The teachers adored me. Even some students who used to laugh at me did too. But then came junior year, and the new kid Bryce. He walked in with a Rolex, a known last name, and a sense of entitlement that showed he had never once heard the word no. On his first day, he raised his hand in biology and said, "Can I partner with Miss India over there?" Loud enough for everyone to hear. Loud enough to make me feel like I was 7 again. But he never got in trouble for it. His dad had donated a new gym scoreboard to get him out of it, and this became a pattern. Bryce would humiliate me, and his dad would throw money at the school to get him off the hook. As you can tell, Bryce loved to torment me. He left bacon in my locker, would fake yawn whenever I spoke in class, say, "Your English is giving me jet lag." The worst part was he never said my name. Instead, he'd call me Chutney Girl, Taliban Barbie, and so on. One day during class, Bryce whispered to our row, "Here comes ISIS 2.0, when the teacher called on me, and no one said anything. Not even the people I thought were my friends. Still, I kept showing up, kept getting straight A's, kept finding the people who saw past the hijab and the accent and the name. I think the main reason Bryce hated me was because I was smarter, that no matter how many times he smirked or sneered, he couldn't beat me in grades. And by senior year, it was official. I was valedictorian and he came in second. His locker got slammed so hard that day, it broke. A week later, I was in a meeting with our principal, who said it was tradition for the runner-up to introduce the valedictorian at graduation. Bryce would be introducing me. I nearly laughed. The principal said he knew about our history and could have someone else introduce me instead. I just smiled and said, "He deserves that spotlight. Let him speak." He was told to write a speech celebrating me, my accomplishments, my character, my name, which by the way, he still couldn't pronounce. He practiced for weeks. I heard him in the hallway muttering, "Maha, Mahera, Mahira." The night before, my parents ironed my gown and sewed Quran verses into the hem, my dad polishing my medal like it was made of gold, and my mom whispered, "Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won." The day of graduation came, and my parents were in the front row. My mom wore her best hijab, navy blue with gold trim. My dad had on the same suit he wore when he got his US citizenship. Bryce took the stage, stumbled on my name twice, then forced it out through gritted teeth. The brilliant Mahera, perfect pronunciation. I walked across the stage, took the mic, and said, "Bryce, thank you for that introduction. I know public speaking is hard, especially when it's not about you." And the crowd laughed. I spoke about resilience, about names, about how pronunciation isn't hard, it just takes respect, and how some kids get trophies for showing up, while others get punished for daring to exist too loudly. I'm here not just because I studied hard, but because my parents believed in me more than the world doubted me. The applause was louder than I'd ever heard it, until Bryce rushed back to the mic and shouted, "I think everyone should know that Mahera was born here. She's not even from Pakistan. She just pretends to be with her fake accent. She lied about where she was born, and those lies will get her rejected from Ivy School." The gasp that followed hit me like a slap, like a betrayal, like every time someone tried to make me feel small. I saw my parents, my mother clutching her purse, my dad already moving to stand. But I took the mic back and said, "That isn't true. My parents and I immigrated here. I am proud of my culture and heritage, and it hasn't kept me from any school. In fact, I accepted a full ride at Columbia just last week." Thankfully, the crowd clapped and cheered as Bryce backed away. Later, I posted a photo, me in my cap and gown, holding my parents' hands, captioned, "Born in Karachi, raised in chaos, built for better." Everything was going amazing, until Bryce posted a video on his account that shifted my entire view of him. The video was him standing in his bedroom looking straight at the camera. His face was red and puffy like he'd been crying. I didn't want to watch it at first. I was done with his drama. My graduation party was that evening, and I had family flying in from Pakistan. I had better things to do than give Bryce more attention. But my friend Danielle texted me about it, then my other friend Wayne, then 5 more people. The video was spreading through our graduating class like wildfire. I finally clicked on it while helping my mom prepare samosas for the party. Bryce looked different in the video. Not smug or confident. He looked broken. He started talking about how his dad had forced him to try to take me down at graduation, how his father had been furious that I hit Bryce for valedictorian. Apparently, his dad had threatened to cut off his college money if he didn't try to humiliate me one last time. I almost dropped my phone in the cooking oil. This couldn't be real. Was this some kind of weird trick? Another way to mess with me? I watched the whole 8-minute video. Bryce actually apologized. He admitted to bullying me for years because he was jealous of how smart I was without even trying. He said his dad had always pushed him to be the best, and when he couldn't hit me academically, he tried to tear me down in other ways. My mom noticed my expression and asked what was wrong. I couldn't even explain it properly. I just handed her my phone and let her watch. She frowned the whole time, then handed it back without saying anything. I knew that look. It was her wait-and-see face. She didn't trust Bryce either. The party that night was amazing. My aunts and uncles filled our small apartment with laughter and gifts. My cousins kept asking me about American colleges, and if I could help them apply too. For a few hours, I forgot about Bryce and his weird confession video. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mahera, it's Bryce. I need to talk to you. It's important." My dad saw the video. I showed the text to my dad. He suggested I ignore it. "Tonight is for celebration," he said, passing me another plate of food. I agreed and put my phone away, but it kept buzzing. 5 more messages from Bryce, each one sounding more desperate than the last. The next morning, I woke up to 23 notifications. Most were from classmates asking if I'd seen what happened to Bryce. I scrolled through my feed and found photos of Bryce with a black eye and split lip. He'd posted them himself with the caption, "The price of telling the truth." I felt sick. Had his dad done this? I showed my parents, and they looked concerned too. My dad said sometimes family can be the most dangerous when they feel betrayed. I decided to text Bryce back, just to check if he was okay. Nothing more. He responded immediately, asking to meet at the coffee shop near school. My parents weren't thrilled about the idea, but my dad offered to drive me and wait outside. I agreed to 15 minutes max. When I walked in, Bryce was sitting in the corner, hunched over a cup. His face looked worse in person. The bruising around his eye had turned a deep purple. He flinched when I sat down across from him. My dad's losing it, he said quietly. The video got back to his business partners. Everyone's talking about how he pushed his son to bully a Pakistani immigrant girl. His company does a lot of business in South Asia. It's bad. I didn't feel sorry for Bryce's dad, not even a little bit. Why did you make that video? I asked. Bryce stared into his coffee. Because you embarrassed me at graduation, not by beating me academically. You earned that. But when you handled my accusations so perfectly, everyone cheered for you. I realized I'd been the villain in your story all along. And for what? To please my dad? I didn't know what to say. 4 years of torment. And now he wanted what? Forgiveness? Understanding? My dad wants me to say I was hammered when I made the video, that I made everything up for attention. He wants me to publicly call you a liar again. I stood up immediately. I'm not getting involved in your family drama, Bryce. You made my life hell for years. Figure this out yourself. As I turned to leave, Bryce grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to make me stop. He's threatening to pull my college tuition if I don't do it. I'll lose everything. I pulled my arm away. Welcome to consequences, Bryce. Some of us have been living with them our whole lives. I walked out and got into my dad's car. He could tell I was upset and asked what happened. I told him everything on the drive home. When we pulled into our apartment complex, he turned to me with that thoughtful look he gets. Sometimes, Beta, the people who hurt us are hurting too. It doesn't excuse what they did, but it might explain it. I nodded but didn't respond. I spent the rest of the day helping my relatives pack for their flights home. My aunt kept asking about the boy from the video and if I was going to forgive him. I honestly didn't know. That night, Bryce posted again. This time it was a formal retraction of his apology video. He claimed he'd been emotional after losing valedictorian and made up lies about his father. He apologized to his dad publicly and called himself immature. The comments were brutal. Nobody believed him. I stared at my phone for a long time before typing out a message to Bryce. I saw your post. Are you okay? His response came hours later. No, I didn't sleep well that night. I kept thinking about Bryce's face at the coffee shop, the fear in his eyes. I'd spent years hating him, but now I just felt confused. The next morning, I woke up to another text from him. Can we talk again? Not in public. I showed my parents the messages. My mom was firmly against meeting him again. My dad was more thoughtful. After a long discussion, we agreed I could meet Bryce at the public library. My mom would come with me but sit at another table nearby. Safety first. When we got to the library, Bryce was already there, wearing sunglasses inside. He took them off when I sat down. His eye looked even worse. There was now a yellowish tinge around the edges of the bruise. My dad took my car keys, he said without preamble. He's monitoring my phone. I had to borrow my neighbor's laptop to message you. He's going through my stuff, deleting contacts of anyone who might have seen the original video. I glanced over at my mom, who was pretending to read a magazine while watching us like a hawk. Why are you telling me this? Bryce slid his phone across the table. On it was an email from Princeton, his dream school. It mentioned concerning reports about his character and requested a meeting with him and his parents before finalizing his admission. My dad blames you for this, he said, taking the phone back. He says if I don't fix things, I can kiss Princeton goodbye. I felt a chill. What does fix things mean? He wants me to say you manipulated me, that you were jealous of my family's success and tried to ruin our reputation. Bryce looked down. He's writing a script for me to follow in a new video. I almost laughed. That's ridiculous. No one would believe that. My dad has connections. He's friends with the editor of the local paper. He's talking about doing an interview about how cancel culture is ruining young men's lives. Now I was getting angry. So what do you want from me, Bryce? Permission to throw me under the bus again? He shook his head. I want to get away from him. I have an aunt in Seattle. She said I could stay with her, but I need money to get there. My dad froze my accounts. I stared at him. Was this another manipulation? Some elaborate scheme? Why should I help you? Because I have evidence, he said quietly. I've been documenting things for months. I have screenshots of my dad's texts telling me to target you, voice recordings of him planning how to ruin your reputation if I didn't hit you academically. He's been obsessed with taking you down since junior year. My stomach dropped. Why would he care that much about me? It's not just about you. It's about what you represent. An immigrant girl beating his son, the legacy kid. It makes him crazy. Bryce looked around nervously. He's always been controlling, but now he's scary. Yesterday he smashed my laptop when I refused to record the new video. I didn't know what to say. Part of me still didn't trust Bryce, but the bruises were real. The fear in his eyes seemed genuine. I need to think about this, I told him. I can't just give you money. He nodded. I understand, but please don't take too long. My dad's getting more desperate. I rejoined my mom, and we left. On the drive home, I told her everything. She was skeptical but concerned about the violence. When we got home, my dad was equally troubled. We talked for hours about what to do. The next day, I got an email from a local news site asking for comment on allegations made by the Thompson family. I showed my parents. My dad immediately called his friend Harold, who was a lawyer. Harold advised us not to respond yet. Things escalated quickly after that. Bryce's dad, Mr. Thompson, posted on his business page about false accusations damaging his family's reputation. He didn't name me directly, but everyone knew who he meant. Then local community Facebook groups started sharing the post. People who didn't even know me were suddenly discussing whether I was a manipulative liar. I felt sick. This was supposed to be my summer before college, a happy time. Instead, I was watching my reputation get dismantled by a man I'd barely met. My phone buzzed with a text from Danielle. Have you seen what Bryce just posted? I hadn't. I quickly opened social media and found a new video from Bryce. This one was different. He looked polished, well-dressed. The bruises were covered with makeup. He spoke carefully, reading from something off camera. He claimed I had been jealous of his success and had manipulated him into making the first video to damage his family's reputation. He apologized to his father for falling for Mahara's tricks. I threw my phone across the room. My mom rushed in, alarmed. I couldn't even speak. I just pointed at my phone. She picked it up, watched the video, and immediately called my dad. Within an hour, my small support system assembled in our living room. My parents, Harold the lawyer, my two closest friends Danielle and Wayne, and my former ESL teacher Ms. Kathleen. They all watched both videos, compared them, and agreed the second one seemed forced. He's reading cue cards, Wayne pointed out. Look at his eyes tracking something. And the bruises, Danielle added. They tried to cover them, but you can still see the yellow around his eye. Harold was more practical. We need to decide what to do. This is getting out of hand. Ms. Kathleen suggested we reach out to Princeton directly. They should know what's really happening before they make any decisions about either student. I wasn't sure. Escalating things might make it worse. But then my phone buzzed with another text from Bryce. I'm sorry. He was standing right there. I had no choice. That settled it for me. I decided to fight back. Not just for myself, but for Bryce too. No one deserved to live in fear like that. We crafted a careful email to Princeton, explaining the situation without making accusations we couldn't prove. We attached links to both videos and noted the concerning physical changes in Bryce between them. Ms. Kathleen added a character reference for me. We sent similar emails to Columbia, where I was headed in the fall. The next day, things got worse. Mr. Thompson escalated his campaign. Somehow he got my cell phone number and started calling repeatedly. I blocked him, but then he started emailing. The messages were polite on the surface, but contained veiled threats about consequences for defamation. Harold advised my parents to keep records of everything. He helped us draft a cease and desist letter, though he admitted it probably wouldn't do much except show we were serious. Meanwhile, Bryce went silent. No new posts, no texts. I was worried about him. What if his dad had hurt him worse this time? 3 days later, I was helping my mom clean the apartment when someone knocked on our door. My mom peeked through the peephole and gasped. It was Bryce, looking terrible, thin, pale, with a new bruise on his jaw. My mom hesitated, then opened the door. Bryce stumbled in, carrying a backpack. I'm sorry, he said, his voice hoarse. I didn't know where else to go. He found out I was planning to leave. My dad came in from the bedroom, alarmed to find Bryce in our living room. Bryce quickly pulled out his phone and played a recording. It was his father, screaming about ungrateful children and threats to end this Pakistani girl's college dreams once and for all. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Then my dad did something that shocked me. He offered Bryce our couch for the night. No one should feel unsafe in their home, he said simply. That night was surreal. My former bully slept in our living room while my parents whispered in their bedroom about what to do. I lay awake, wondering how my life had taken such a strange turn. In the morning, Bryce showed us more evidence. Screenshots of his dad's messages to business associates, asking them to help deal with this situation. Emails to Princeton questioning my character. Even a draft of an article his dad wanted published in the local paper, painting me as a calculating manipulator who played the victim card. He's obsessed, Bryce said, scrolling through his phone. It's like he can't stand that someone like you could hit someone like me. The someone like you stung, but I let it go. We had bigger problems. My dad called Harold again. This time, Harold came over in person. He reviewed everything Bryce had shown us and took copies. He explained that while Mr. Thompson's behavior was concerning, much of it wasn't technically illegal. The best approach might be to counter his narrative rather than try to silence him. People like this thrive on control and fear, Harold explained. The best defense is often full transparency. We spent the day crafting a response, not just for Princeton, but for everyone. With Bryce's permission, we compiled the evidence into a single document. The texts, the emails, the recordings. We added context, explaining the history of Bryce's bullying and his father's enabling. Then came the hard part, deciding what to do with it all. If we make this public, your dad will retaliate, I told Bryce. Are you ready for that? He looked scared but nodded. I can't live like this anymore, and I can't let him hurt you because of me. That afternoon, we sent the complete file to both Princeton and Columbia. We also shared it with our school principal and the school board, not to get anyone in trouble, but to protect ourselves from whatever might come next. Bryce stayed another night on our couch. His phone kept ringing with calls from his dad, which he ignored. In the morning, he got an email from Princeton requesting a private meeting with him, without his parents. It seemed they were taking the situation seriously. I felt a weight lifting. Maybe this would all work out. Then my mom got a call from a friend who cleaned houses in Bryce's neighborhood. Mr. Thompson was telling people I had kidnapped his son. He was threatening to call the police. Panic set in. This was getting dangerous. Harold advised us to be proactive. Bryce called the non-emergency police line himself and explained he had left home voluntarily because he felt unsafe. They took his information but seemed unconcerned since he was 18. Still, we knew Mr. Thompson wouldn't give up easily. He had money and connections. He was used to getting his way. That evening, as we were eating dinner, someone pounded on our door. Through the peephole, we could see Mr. Thompson, red-faced and furious. My dad told us to stay back while he handled it. I couldn't hear everything, but my dad's voice remained calm while Mr. Thompson's got louder. Finally, my dad said clearly enough for us to hear, "Your son is welcome here as long as he needs. If you continue harassing my family, we will take appropriate legal action." The door closed. Mr. Thompson shouted something from the hallway, then stormed off. My dad came back looking shaken but resolute. "He's not a well man," was all he said. The next day, Bryce got another email from Princeton. They wanted to meet with him as soon as possible, alone. He was nervous but agreed. My dad drove him to the meeting and waited outside. When Bryce came out 2 hours later, he looked different, lighter somehow. He showed us the email on his phone. Princeton had reviewed the evidence and found his situation deeply concerning. They were still offering him admission, but with a new financial aid package that didn't depend on his parents' contribution. "They believe me," he said, sounding amazed. "They actually believe me." Columbia sent me a similar email, assuring me they had reviewed the situation and my admission was secure. They even offered to connect me with their student support services if I needed help dealing with the stress of the situation. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Mr. Thompson's campaign of intimidation had failed. The truth had won out. Bryce stayed with us for another week while he arranged to move in early to Princeton's summer housing. His aunt in Seattle sent him money for expenses. He was quiet most of the time, helping with dishes and keeping to himself. Sometimes I caught him watching my family with a strange expression, like he was studying us. The night before he left, he finally talked to me properly. We sat on our small balcony, watching the sunset. "I never understood what family was supposed to be like until I stayed here," he said. "Your parents actually like you. They're proud of you just for being you." I didn't know what to say to that. It was sad, but also irritating. Was I supposed to feel sorry for the guy who had tormented me for years? "I know you probably hate me," he continued. "You should. I was awful to you. But thank you for helping me anyway." I thought about it for a moment. "I don't hate you. I just don't know you. The real you, not the bully or the victim." He nodded. "That makes sense. I'm not sure I know the real me either." The next morning, my dad drove Bryce to the bus station. He was heading to Princeton to start his new life. As they were leaving, Bryce turned to me awkwardly. "Columbia's lucky to have you," he said. "Try not to be valedictorian there too. Some rich kid might lose his mind." I actually laughed. Maybe there was a decent human under all that privilege after all. After Bryce left, things calmed down. Mr. Thompson made a few more attempts to spread his narrative, but without Bryce to manipulate, his story fell apart. People stopped paying attention. The community moved on to new drama. I spent the rest of the summer preparing applying for Columbia. I worked at the library, saved money, and helped my mom with her cleaning business. Normal life resumed. Then, 2 weeks before I was set to leave for New York, I got a letter, actual paper mail, which almost no one sends anymore. It was from Bryce. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note. For your first semester expenses. It's my money, not his. I've been saving it since I was 12. Consider it 4 years of apology. No strings attached. I showed my parents. They were as shocked as I was. My dad suggested I return it. My mom wasn't so sure. He's trying to make amends, she said. Sometimes people need that for themselves as much as for others. I thought about it for days. Part of me wanted nothing from Bryce. Another part recognized the gesture for what it was, a genuine attempt to right some wrongs. In the end, I decided to accept half and return half. I wrote back thanking him but explaining I couldn't take it all. I suggested he donate the rest to an ESL program or immigrant support organization. His response came quickly. Already done. The other half went to the Pakistani Students Association at Princeton. I'm joining as an ally. They were skeptical until I mentioned your name. I smiled at that. My name. The one he couldn't pronounce for years. The one he had to say in front of 600 people. The one that now opened doors for him instead of the other way around. Maybe my dad had been right all along. My voice had indeed gone further than their laughter ever could. I got another email from Bryce a few days later with a link to the Princeton Pakistani Students Association's Instagram. They'd posted a picture of a donation check with Bryce in the background, looking awkward but sincere. The caption thanked him for his generous contribution to support cultural awareness programming. I showed my mom, who just nodded like she'd expected it all along. Summer was winding down fast. My Columbia move-in date was circled on our kitchen calendar in red marker. My parents had already taken time off work to drive me to New York. I spent most days packing and repacking my suitcases, trying to figure out what I'd need and what I could leave behind. Wayne threw me a going-away party at his house. Almost everyone from our graduating class showed up, even people I barely knew. It felt weird being the center of attention after spending so many years trying to blend in. Danielle made a slideshow of photos from elementary school through graduation. I cringed seeing my awkward middle school photos, but laughed along with everyone else. The party was in full swing when I got a text from Bryce. How's pre-college life treating you? I stepped outside to respond. We'd been texting occasionally since he left. Nothing deep, just checking in. I told him about the party and asked how Princeton was. He sent back a photo of his dorm room, already set up with posters and a mini fridge. He'd moved in early for a summer bridge program. Making friends? I texted. Trying. It's different here. Nobody knows about my dad or what happened. Fresh start. I was about to respond when Danielle poked her head out the door. Hey, we're cutting the cake. Who are you texting so secretly? I put my phone away. Nobody important. The cake had Columbia's newest lion written in blue icing. Everyone sang and cheered. For a moment, I forgot about all the drama with Bryce and his dad. This was how senior summer was supposed to feel. The next morning, I woke up to a news alert on my phone. I almost ignored it until I saw the headline, Local Business Leader Gregory Thompson Steps Down Amid Controversy. I sat up so fast I got dizzy. The article was vague about details, just saying he was leaving his position for personal reasons and to focus on family matters, but the timing couldn't be coincidental. I forwarded the link to Bryce with a question mark. His response came hours later. Board forced him out. Too many rumors about his behavior. He's blaming me, of course. I felt a weird mix of satisfaction and worry. Are you okay? Better than ever. He can't control me anymore. I showed the article to my parents at breakfast. My dad read it carefully, then set down his coffee. Sometimes consequences find people in their own time, he said. My mom nodded in agreement. The next week flew by in a blur of last-minute shopping and packing. My parents bought me new sheets for my dorm bed and a laptop for classes. My mom kept adding more food to my suitcase like I was heading to a desert island instead of a university with dining halls. The night before we left for New York, I couldn't sleep. I sat on our small balcony, looking at the stars and thinking about everything that had happened. 4 years of bullying, the graduation showdown, Bryce's confession, and his dad's meltdown. It felt like I'd lived an entire lifetime in just a few months. My phone buzzed with a text from Bryce. Nervous about tomorrow? How did you know I'm leaving tomorrow? You mentioned it last week. I have a good memory for some things. I smiled despite myself. Yeah, nervous but excited. You? Classes start Monday. I joined the debate team already. And that Pakistani Students Association. They're teaching me Urdu phrases. Careful. Your pronunciation was always terrible. I'm practicing. Maybe someday I'll say your name perfectly in multiple languages. I laughed out loud at that. Who would have thought I'd be joking around with Bryce Thompson at midnight before college? My dad found me on the balcony around 1 a.m. and brought me a cup of chai. We sat together in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, he said, I'm proud of how you handled everything this summer. I leaned against his shoulder like I used to do when I was little. I learned from the best. The drive to New York the next day took forever. We hit traffic in New Jersey and again in Manhattan. My dad kept checking the GPS while my mom fretted about being late for check-in. I sat in the back seat, watching the scenery change from suburbs to city. Columbia was more beautiful than I remembered from my campus visit. The historic buildings looked like something from a movie. My dorm was in a newer building with air conditioning, which my mom was very excited about. We parked in the unloading zone and started carrying my stuff up to my room. My roommate Julia was already there with her parents. She was from California and seemed nice enough. We awkwardly divided the room while our parents made small talk. Her dad kept mentioning their beach house, and I could tell my parents felt out of place. After we finished setting up my side of the room, my parents took me to dinner at a small Pakistani restaurant they'd researched beforehand. My mom cried a little when the food came. It tastes like home, she said. I held her hand across the table. We walked around campus after dinner. My dad kept taking photos of everything. Me in front of the library, me by the main gates, me next to random statues. My mom kept pointing out emergency phones and reminding me to always walk with friends at night. When it was time for them to leave, I walked them back to the car. My mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. My dad kissed the top of my head like he used to when I was little. Your voice will go further than you can imagine, he whispered. I cried as they drove away. Standing alone on a New York City street, I felt smaller than I had in years. What if I couldn't handle college? What if I didn't make friends? What if everyone here was smarter than me? I was still wiping away tears when my phone buzzed. It was Bryce again. First day going okay? I was about to type fine when I decided to be honest instead. Parents just left, feeling a bit lost. Normal. I cried in the shower my first night so my roommate wouldn't hear. That made me smile. Thanks for telling me that. I'll hold it over you forever. I deserve that. Hey, did you know Princeton and Columbia have a bunch of joint events, academic competitions and stuff? Are you suggesting we might see each other again? Princeton? Maybe, if you don't mind. I promise to pronounce your name correctly. I walked back to my dorm thinking about that. Did I want to see Bryce again? The boy who had made high school hell but then showed me a different side of himself? I wasn't sure. Orientation week was a whirlwind of activities. I met so many people I couldn't keep their names straight. My roommate Julia turned out to be really nice, if a bit sheltered. She'd never had a non-white friend before and asked some awkward questions, but she was genuinely trying to learn. Classes started, and I quickly fell into a routine. The workload was intense but exciting. I joined the Muslim Students Association and the Pre-Med Society. I made friends with a girl named Andrea from my chemistry class and a guy named Gray from the dorm floor below mine. About a month into the semester, I got an email about an upcoming debate competition with Princeton. Teams from both schools would argue topics related to immigration policy. There was a link to sign up. I stared at it for a long time before clicking. I wasn't on the debate team, but the email said they were looking for students with personal perspectives on immigration. That was definitely me. The tryouts were the following week. I prepared a short speech about my family's experience immigrating to America. When my turn came, I spoke clearly and confidently, the way I had at graduation. The debate coach, Professor Lawrence, nodded approvingly throughout. I made the team. We had 2 weeks to prepare for the competition, which would be held at Princeton. I threw myself into research, staying late at the library most nights. My roommate Julia brought me coffee and snacks, joking that she only saw me when I came back to change clothes. The day of the competition arrived faster than I expected. Our team took a bus to Princeton early that morning. The campus was gorgeous, all ivy-covered buildings and perfectly manicured lawns. It screamed old money in a way that made me slightly uncomfortable. We gathered in a large lecture hall for the opening remarks. I was scanning the Princeton team when I spotted him. Bryce was sitting in the front row, wearing a blue blazer with the Princeton logo. He saw me at the same time and gave a small wave. During the first round, Columbia faced a different Princeton team. We won easily. I didn't speak much, just presented some statistics to support our main argument. The second round was tougher, but we pulled through. For the final round, we were up against Bryce's team. The topic was, should immigration status be considered in college admissions? We were arguing that it shouldn't. As I listened to Bryce's opening statement, I realized something had changed. He spoke passionately about the contributions of immigrant students, citing research about academic achievement and cultural enrichment. When it was my turn to speak, I shared my personal story, how my parents had sacrificed everything for my education, how I'd faced discrimination but persevered. I didn't look at Bryce while I spoke, but I could feel his eyes on me. In his rebuttal, Bryce acknowledged the validity of my experience but argued that universities should be aware of immigration status, not to discriminate, but to provide appropriate support services. It was a nuanced take I hadn't expected. The judges deliberated for nearly 30 minutes before declaring Columbia the winners by a narrow margin. As people gathered their things, Bryce approached me. "Great job," he said, extending his hand. "Your closing argument was killer." I shook his hand, feeling strange about the formality. "Thanks, you've gotten better at this." "I had a good teacher," he smiled, and for once it wasn't smug or forced. "A few of us are getting dinner in town. Would you and your team want to join?" I looked over at my teammates who were watching curiously. Sure, why not? Dinner was surprisingly fun. Bryce introduced me to his friends without mentioning our complicated history. Just, "This is Mahara. She's brilliant." His Princeton friends were mostly okay, though one guy named Randy kept interrupting everyone. As the night went on, I found myself sitting next to Bryce. "So," I said quietly, "the Pakistani Students Association? How's that going?" He laughed. "They've been patient with me. I'm learning a lot." He hesitated, then added, "My dad cut me off completely after the board forced him out. He's telling family I'm dead to him." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Bryce shrugged. "Don't be. I'm figuring out who I am without him. It's hard, but good." He took a sip of his water. "How are your parents?" "They call every day. My mom sends me Pakistani food through this app that delivers from home kitchens. My dad keeps sending articles about successful women in medicine. They sound amazing," Bryce said. "You're lucky." I nodded. "I know." After dinner, as our teams were saying goodbye, Bryce pulled me aside. "Columbia has a debate tournament next month. We'll probably see each other there." "Probably," I agreed. "I'd like that," he said simply. As our bus drove back to New York, I thought about how strange life could be. The boy who once called me Taliban Barbie was now someone I might actually want to see again. Not as a friend exactly. We had too much history for that, but as something new. Two people getting to know each other from scratch. I texted my parents when I got back to my dorm. My dad responded immediately with a string of proud emojis. My mom called a minute later, wanting to hear every detail of our victory. After we hung up, I sat on my bed and opened Instagram. Bryce had posted a photo of both debate teams at dinner. He tagged me with the caption, "Lost to the best today. Rematch next month at Columbia." I liked the post, then added a comment, "Pronunciation still needs work, but you're getting there." His response came seconds later. "Practice makes perfect, Mahara." He'd spelled my name correctly. It was a small thing, but it felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Whatever came next, friendship, rivalry, or something else entirely, at least it would start with my name, said properly. I closed my laptop and got ready for bed, thinking about the debate tournament next month and all the months after that. College stretched before me, full of possibilities I couldn't have imagined a year ago. I fell asleep smiling, dreaming of future victories and my name, pronounced perfectly, echoing in crowded halls.